The year was 1783. The air was thick with anticipation and uncertainty as the dust of war finally began to settle across the American colonies. The Treaty of Paris ended the war, officially recognizing the United States as a free and independent nation in the eyes of the world. America had won its independence, and for a brief moment, hope and pride swept through the land. The redcoats left, and the cannons fell silent. The long struggle was over, but the scars of conflict remained everywhere. Americans were now citizens of a new republic, not subjects of a king. For the first time, they would shape their own destiny. But the victory celebration faded quickly, replaced by the daunting reality of self-government and the challenges it would bring. The 13 states were united in war, but divided in almost every other way, different economies, cultures, and visions for the future. Each state clung to its own identity, wary of surrendering power to a central authority. The war left the nation in debt, cities scarred, and soldiers unpaid. Many veterans returned home to uncertainty, struggling to rebuild their lives. Discontent simmered, and George Washington had to calm his restless officers to prevent a military coup. The fragile peace was threatened from within as well as from abroad. The world doubted America's survival. Many expected chaos or foreign domination. European powers watched closely, waiting to see if the experiment would fail. The core question: were Americans a loose alliance of states or one unified nation? The answer would shape the continent for centuries to come. States guarded their power, and regional differences ran deep. Fierce debates erupted over trade, taxes, and the very nature of government. The bonds of unity were fragile, based more on hope than certainty. The dream of a lasting union was far from guaranteed. America stood at a crossroads, facing vast opportunities and daunting challenges. The choices made now would echo through generations. The euphoria of victory gave way to the hard work of governing. Every decision carried the weight of history. Revolutionary leaders like Jefferson, Adams, and Hamilton now had to build a government that could last. Their debates and disagreements would shape the nation's foundation. The first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, would soon reveal the difficulties ahead. Weaknesses in the system became clear as states quarreled and the government struggled to act. The real revolution, governing, had only just begun. The fight for independence was over, but the struggle to define America's future was just starting. The future of the new nation was uncertain. Every citizen, from farmer to statesman, wondered what would come next. The experiment in liberty was about to face its greatest test, a test that would determine whether the ideals of the revolution could truly endure. During the war, the Continental Congress created the Articles of Confederation, America's first constitution. This document was a bold step towards unifying the 13 colonies under a single framework. Fearful of tyranny, they made the national government weak and left most power with the states. The memory of British oppression was still fresh, and they wanted to avoid any semblance of centralized control. There was no president, no national court, and Congress had little authority. The government lacked the essential structures to enforce laws or mediate disputes. Each state had one vote, and major laws required 9 states to agree. Almost impossible. This made passing significant legislation a daunting task. Amending the articles required a unanimous vote. This unanimity was nearly unattainable, stalling any potential progress. Congress could declare war but not raise an army. It had to ask states for troops, which they often refused. This left the nation vulnerable and defenseless. The government couldn't tax, only request money from the states, who rarely paid. This financial impotence crippled the government's ability to function. As a result, the government was broke, unable to pay debts or soldiers. The very soldiers who had fought for independence were left destitute. The currency, the Continental, became worthless. Inflation soared, and economic stability was a distant dream. Congress couldn't regulate trade, so states set up their own tariffs, treating neighbors like foreign countries. This fragmented the economy and stifled growth. Economic rivalry and resentment grew. States began to see each other as competitors rather than allies. The League of Friendship was turning into a league of rivals. The unity that had been forged in the fires of revolution was now at risk. The weak government threatened to unravel the hard-won unity of the revolution. The very fabric of the new nation was fraying. The articles meant to protect liberty now risked destroying the nation. The need for a stronger, more effective government was becoming clear. America needed a government that could actually govern. The call for change was growing louder. The cracks in the system were widening. The time for a new constitution was approaching. The post-war years brought economic crisis and social unrest. British goods flooded the market, hurting American businesses. Britain closed its West Indies ports, crippling New England trade. The government's inability to pay debts led to financial collapse. Farmers lost land and were thrown into debtor's prison. Shays' Rebellion erupted in Massachusetts. Angry veterans shut down courts to stop foreclosures. The national government was powerless. Massachusetts had to use its own militia. Internationally, America looked weak. Britain kept forts in the Great Lakes, arming native tribes against settlers. Spain closed the Mississippi River, hurting Western farmers. Congress couldn't force foreign powers to respect American sovereignty. States quarreled, the economy faltered, and foreign threats loomed. The dream of a virtuous republic was slipping into chaos. Even George Washington worried the nation might not survive. The Articles of Confederation were failing. Change was desperately needed. Despite turmoil, Americans pushed west across the Appalachians, seeking land and opportunity. The frontier was not empty. It was home to Native American nations who resisted encroachment. Violent conflict erupted as settlers clashed with tribes. The weak government couldn't negotiate treaties or protect settlers. Yet Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, creating a path for new states and banning slavery in the Northwest Territory. It was a rare success, promising rights and orderly growth. But the government lacked power to enforce its laws or protect the frontier. Expansion brought hope, but also instability and conflict. The need for a stronger national government became undeniable. As crisis deepened, two visions for America emerged. Some, like Jefferson, wanted a decentralized republic of farmers, fearing strong central power. Others, like Hamilton and Madison, saw the need for a strong national government to ensure stability and prosperity. The chaos under the Articles convinced many that weakness threatened liberty more than strength. Merchants, creditors, and army officers demanded a government that could tax, regulate trade, and defend the nation. In 1786, Madison and Hamilton called a meeting in Annapolis to address commercial problems. Only 5 states attended, but they called for a new convention in Philadelphia to fix the government's flaws. The stage was set for a bold new beginning. America was ready to reinvent itself. The Constitutional Convention would decide the nation's fate. The debate over America's future was about to reach its climax. In May 1787, delegates from 12 states gathered in Philadelphia, determined to save the fragile republic from collapse. The city buzzed with anticipation as these men, representing a young nation, prepared to tackle the monumental task of shaping a new government. Rhode Island refused to attend, fearing that a stronger central government would threaten its independence and unique interests. The delegates quickly agreed that the Articles of Confederation were too weak to hold the states together. Instead of simply revising them, they made the bold decision to draft an entirely new constitution. Meeting in secret behind closed doors, they debated fiercely through a sweltering Philadelphia summer. The biggest and most contentious issue was representation in the new government. Large states argued for representation based on population, believing it was fairer. Small states, however, demanded equal votes to protect their voices. The Great Compromise resolved the deadlock, creating a two-house Congress, the House of Representatives, based on population, and the Senate, with equal representation for each state. But the convention also faced another divisive issue: slavery. The question of how enslaved people would be counted threatened to tear the convention apart. Southern states wanted slaves counted fully for representation, increasing their power in Congress. Northern states objected, arguing it was unjust. The resulting 3/5 compromise counted 3 out of every 5 enslaved people for both representation and taxation, a decision that would have lasting consequences. In addition, Congress was barred from banning the international slave trade for 20 years, a concession to southern states that would haunt the nation. These compromises were seen as necessary to unite the states, but they left a dark legacy that would shape American history for generations. The new Constitution carefully balanced power between the states and the national government, aiming to prevent tyranny while ensuring unity. After months of heated debate and difficult compromise, the framework for a stronger, more flexible government was finally born. The future of the United States would now depend on whether the people would accept this new vision and whether it could truly hold the nation together. On September 17, 1787, the Constitution was finished, but it needed approval from 9 states to become law. The nation split into Federalists, who supported the Constitution, and Anti-Federalists, who feared central power and the lack of a Bill of Rights. Fierce debates erupted in newspapers and town halls. The Federalist Papers, written by Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, argued for ratification and explained the new system. Anti-Federalists demanded protections for individual liberties. The Federalists promised to add a Bill of Rights if the Constitution was adopted. One by one, states debated and voted. In June 1788, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify. The Constitution became the law of the land. America had a new government and a new chance at unity and survival.